Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Amber and today's video is going to be my worst books that I've read this year. To be honest, I've not had the worst reading year. I haven't read any 1-star books this year. All the books in this video I rated either 2 stars or 2.5 stars. There's nothing that I've read that has been like truly awful, so I've had a really good reading year on the whole. But I do have 7 books that were just not it for me. I'll start with the 2 that I gave a 2.5 star. So the first one that I have is The Employees by Olga Raven. This was a very strange book for me because half of me felt like I loved it and half of me felt like I hated it. This is basically a book set in the 22nd century, and each chapter is a tiny snippet from the perspective of one of the employees that works on this like spacecraft thing. The employees are a mixture of humans and humanoids, so part robot. That's all I can remember because honestly I found this book to be really hard to get through. Even though it's so short and snappy, I would find myself just completely glazing over every time I pick this up. The other part that conflicted me with this is that a lot of it is really well written, so there were quite a lot of quotes that I was highlighting and underlining, and some of it I was really enjoying, but then the actual process of reading it was just weirdly difficult for me, where I just had no interest in picking it up. I just had no interest in finding out where it was going. So that's why I landed on like a 2.5 in the end, because part of me wanted to really like it, part of me really just did not enjoy the reading experience. I found out that this book is inspired by a particular like art exhibition. So maybe it was just something that sparked an idea, but it just didn't have the depth and like the emotion that I wanted from it. So yeah, that's probably like my least offensive worst book of the year. Next up we have The Ugly Truth by Elsie North. This was actually the first book that I read in 2024. I don't know why I picked this one in particular. I think it just sounded quite fun. It's basically a mixed media mystery story about a really famous celebrity who has gone missing. Her fans are really worried about her, but her family and friends are basically saying she's safe, there's nothing to worry about, she's just not in the public eye anymore. And people just think it's a little bit suspicious. This book heavily draws on the experience of Britney Spears. It just felt a little bit too close to Britney's life, and it just made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. This book isn't really a thriller or a mystery like I thought it would be. It was more of a drama kind of story, but it tried to have a little bit of commentary on like celebrity culture, but it's also kind of buying into it. So I ended up just feeling a little bit iffy at the end. It was an alright time on audio, it was fun to listen to, but the actual sort of meaning behind it just left a bad taste for me. Now on to our 2-star books. So the first one is The Witnesses Are Gone by Joel Lane. This book sounded really interesting to me because it's about a guy who finds a very strange film on like a VHS tape in his shed, and this guy basically becomes obsessed with trying to find more videos that this guy's done. And I just thought it would be like really spooky, quite horrifying, and for me it was just like nothing. It's only a short book, but I feel like it just dragged so much. We just follow this guy as he travels to various places to feed this obsession with this director, and I didn't really understand the hype with the director. I didn't feel any creepiness like I was hoping to feel. It felt a little bit fever dreamy, which isn't my favourite thing. I can either really love it or really just feel out of it completely. And in this case, I just felt completely like isolated from the story. There was also some odd like political bits in there. I remember just feeling like they felt a little bit out of place, but that might just be my personal taste. And it was just a book that I constantly wanted to DNF, but I thought I would push through. I was hoping for something to, you know, come that I would really like, and it just never came, and I really just was so disappointed with this book. Then moving on to another novella, this is Tamush by Sven Holm. It's basically set in the aftermath of some sort of nuclear war or apocalypse, and we're following this guy who's basically staying in this luxury hotel after the apocalypse has happened. In this hotel there's just a bunch of rich people who've obviously paid a lot of money to kind of be safe and to be waited on and looked after in the midst of this crisis. So that was what really drew me into this book, because I thought it would be a very interesting like social exploration of that. But instead, this book again just fell very flat for me. It didn't really explore any of the things that I wanted it to explore. There were so many opportunities for interesting conversation about this. Part of this story looks at the idea that stragglers from the outside would want to come into the hotel, and it puts them in a very difficult position of, do they let people in? But then again, people have paid for this experience, so where do people kind of stand with that? And it just didn't go deep enough into what I wanted it to, so I just felt very disappointed. Again, it was a very short book that I found myself just struggling to get through because my interest had just almost gone, and yeah, it just wasn't for me. Next up we have Lemon by Kwon Yo-sun. So in this book we're following a couple of different perspectives who are all linked to the murder of this girl, but rather than focusing on the murder itself, it's looking more at the sort of impact that it's had on these girls. Initially I quite liked this book because I thought it was quite like experimental, but in a good way. It used lots of different like writing styles and things that were just a little bit not conventional that I enjoyed. But I feel like as the book went on, I just kind of lost that love that I was having for it. And it wasn't until I started reading a couple of reviews on Goodreads after I'd finished it that I realised there was quite a big plot reveal towards the end of the book that just hadn't like made sense to me at all. And there were quite a few other people in the comments of that review saying, I literally didn't know that happened until you just told me. And then that really like threw me because I'd initially given this book a 3-star, and then I bumped it down to a 2 because that reveal was like really important for the book and I just completely missed it. For me, it just felt a bit too subtle. It just made me feel well confused afterwards because I was like, how have I just missed that? But luckily it wasn't just me, I wasn't alone. But yeah, it did have good elements to it. Like I said, I was enjoying it quite a lot at the start, but it just felt like it never really went anywhere for me personally. Next up is another novella, actually. I feel like I had quite bad luck with novellas this year, but this one is The Invention of Morel, and this one is written by Adolfo Bioy Cesares. And in this book, we're following a guy who is on the run. He goes to this little island and something strange seems to be happening there. I think it's quite an old novella, so it probably has had quite a lot of an impact on other stories. But reading this in 2024, I just did not like it. The main character was very unlikable. He basically develops this obsession with someone that he sees on the island, and his obsession like really bugged me. I didn't like the way that it was portrayed as like love and like a genuine thing, when really it was just creepy and stalkerish, and I did not like it. The reveal itself of what was going on was told in a really strange way, and it just kind of quickly dissolved all the mystery elements of this book, and I just thought it was a really odd way to kind of tell that story. So yeah, maybe this has done really profound things for literature in the years since it was published, but for me it was just not good. I did not like it, did not like the character, did not like the way that the story was told, and I was just very disappointed. And then lastly, this is probably my least favourite book of the year, and it's so frustrating to me because this was a 5-star prediction. So this is The Other Side of Night by Adam Hamdi. As you can tell, this is the only one of these books that I still have physically. That's because I recently bought this along with some other 5-star predictions. I am gonna hopefully sell this or give it to a charity shop or something. So basically in this book we start with a guy called David Asher who says that his biggest regret was the separation with him and his son Elliot. Then we flip to this woman called Harry, who is a police officer, but she's been struck off for whatever reason. She finds this note in a book that says, "Help, he's trying to kill me." And she investigates it. It leads her to David and his family. She then also carries on investigating, and it leads her to a guy that she was once in love with, called Ben. And he is David Asher's like close friend, and he's like a surrogate father to Elliot. So all these people are somehow involved, and it's basically a story about that. This one annoyed me so much, like it really bugged me. Harry, our main character, did not like her at all. So she is obsessed with this guy called Ben, who she went on 2 dates with. 2 dates. The whole time in this book she refers to him as like the man I once loved, the man I loved, the man I fell in love with, constantly. Doesn't just call him Ben, it's always the man I loved, and it just like drove me up the wall. It was really slow paced and repetitive because obviously the back of the book reveals quite a lot about the setup of the story, and it just takes ages to get to that point because we're also getting flashbacks to Harry and this Ben's like dates, and I could not have cared less. The insta-love was unreal, and the way that it kept hinting at why Harry had been dismissed as a police officer was really annoying. Like, sometimes I get like, yeah, you're trying to build a bit of mystery around it, you're trying to build the suspense, and I don't know if it's because the rest of the story was annoying me, but like this constant dropping of, ooh, what's the mystery of why she was dismissed? I was like, I do not care at this point. And I felt like the writing just wasn't great. Like, obviously, aside from the fact that Ben was the guy she once loved over and over and over, there was a scene that describes a necklace and this necklace being given to somebody. This necklace was described in great detail, the same detail, twice within like a couple of pages. And then the scene of where it was given to somebody was also described in great detail within the same time. And I was like, what the hell? Why has the editor not like clocked that? Like, I've literally just read this a couple of pages ago. Why are we like rehashing it now? And immediately it told me like, okay, this is something I need to remember, but not in a fun way. It was like a, okay, you're forcing this on me now and it's not fun. And lastly, the like twist and reveal in this book was not really that shocking to me because there's enough hints dropped throughout the book that you can tell what kind of twist is coming. So when it did, I was just like, okay, fine. Like, have we not kind of figured this out already? And then it all kind of ended with this focus on a specific character being so heroic and so sacrificing, and I was just like, no, I'm not interested. It was like hammed up to the max. I just didn't like the writing. I didn't like it at all. There was way too many like things about this book that annoyed me. It feels a little bit more like a 1 star for me, but 1 star just seems very like, wow, this book is shit. And I don't think it is. Everyone else that I know who has read this book has given it like a 5 star. So yeah, that is all the books that I've read this year that have either been like a 2 star or a 2.5. So thankfully there wasn't actually that many. 7 out of the 50 books that I've read so far this year is pretty good. I'm now going to film my best books of 2024, so please do subscribe if you want to see that. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment telling me if A, you've either read any of these books and what you thought of them, and B, what some of your worst books of the year have been, because I always love looking at what people have really hated. Luckily, I don't hate any of these books, but you know, there's, yeah. So yeah, I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!